This is why we have decided to invite our guests here. People that deal with these topics every day. Professor, I'm going to leave the floor to you. Thank you for the invitation. It's very nice to be here with you today. As you said, as you mentioned, UNESCO was born just after the birth of the United Nations, of the UN. So when the UN was born, some totally new principles were created. On the UN Charter, for the first time, we find that it is forbidden to use violence and forbidden to fight. The principle of respecting human rights and international cooperation, for example. These principles were not so obvious in the past. The principle of the self-determination of peoples. With the UN Charter dating back to 1945, we started having a new era. There was a new era, and UNESCO was born just after the birth of the UN, with the objective to build, with the objective to educate men and women towards the culture of international cooperation, positive peace, and not only negative peace, meaning without war, but actually the willingness to build an international order, peace that is based on democratic values. And as I said, UNESCO is that international organization that for the first time adopted a whole set of recommendations on education, human rights, peace, and the most important of these recommendations still today is the one dating back to 1974, many years ago. If we just think about how much work UNESCO has done through international commissions, schools, UNESCO charters, etc., many initiatives with the task to promote the universal culture of peace and human rights. Thank you. Thank you for your question. Well, Agenda 2030 is made up of two parts mainly. So as you know, the Agenda 2030 was adopted by the General Assembly of the United Nations in September 2015, so 6 years ago. 6 years have gone by already. That agenda is based on the UN member states taking responsibility. The agenda was adopted by this universal body, and there are 17 objectives of sustainable development. And before these objectives, there's a declaration, and that declaration specifies how these objectives will have to be conceived and implemented. And in fact, the declaration says that Agenda 2030 is based on the principles mentioned on the Universal Declaration of Human Rights of 1948. So those objectives are based on that. And the article that you have mentioned represents the attempt to acknowledge and respect human rights for everybody in every part of the world. Agenda 2030 has this fundamental objective. I'd like to remind you of three main principles related to human rights that are fundamentally important in order to understand Agenda 2030. First principle is that human rights are innate. So this means that every human being, no, sorry, this is Article 28. Article number 1 says all human beings are born free and the same in terms of freedom and rights. So the legislator has to acknowledge these rights. It means that when we're born with a whole set of fundamental rights, and since they are inborn or innate, they can't be violated. Second principle is the universal dimension of human rights, and this universal dimension is logical, because since human rights are innate, then we all have the same rights. The right to freedom of association, to education, freedom of information, well, the right to freedom of information, etc. But also, you know, at universal level, also, regional organizations are acknowledging all these principles. We have agreements promoted by the Council of Europe, the Organization of American States, the League of African Countries, etc. And the point of reference for all these regional agreements on human rights is the Universal Declaration on Human Rights. And then, you know, when people are suffering, if people are victims of violence, you know, everybody shouts out. They shout loud. You have to respect human rights, and this is why, again, I underline the importance of the universal dimension of human rights, and also civil, political, economic, social, and cultural rights, individual and collective rights, are all interconnected, and they are all at the same level. There are no priorities. They are all the same. They are interdependent. What does it mean? Well, this means that the right of freedom to information and access to information, etc., is to be located on the same level as the right to access to education, for example. So, you know, the state of law and also the welfare state are at the same level, on the same level. And again, these are the objectives for sustainable development. Achieving these objectives by 2030 means satisfying the fundamental rights of many people in every part of the world. For this question, and I'd like to start from the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. In the preamble of the Declaration, well, we find teaching and education as the tool to be used in order to promote the respect of fundamental freedom and human rights. So already on the Universal Declaration dating back to 1948, we find that this specific reference made by the international legislators. Let's also remember that the mother of this Universal Declaration was a woman, Eleanor Roosevelt, the president's wife. And he passed away just before the end of the Conference of San Francisco. She was also the head of the Commission on Human Rights, and she guided this very intense debate with representatives of cultures from everywhere in the world. And I'd also like to remind you of the very important role played by UNESCO. Well, UNESCO decided that Eleanor Roosevelt had to be supported by Jacques Maritain, and Jacques Maritain made a study, a survey among intellectuals, academics, before writing down the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. So as you can see, schools and universities play a fundamental role in order to reach objective number 4, in particular 4.7, as you also mentioned. I think that nowadays in schools, it would be very important to talk about human rights and especially, as you know, civic education as a subject has been introduced. And there's a new law. There's a new law in Italy saying that education has to be based on the knowledge of the Constitution, constitutional rights, the international law, European law have to be known. So as you can see, the world of education and schools have to focus on this multi-level governance architecture. That is to say, schools have to teach how to be human beings and citizens at all levels. Why are we studying international law? Well, because nowadays we live in a world that is strongly interconnected, where you can't distinguish between the inside and the outside. What is the inside nowadays? Well, you know, it's almost all international. And so that the principle of sovereignty is almost not there anymore. This is why schools should provide a cross-cut teaching on civic education and civic law. This is why it is very important to go back to the recommendations, documents, reports made by the UNESCO over the years. There are some very important documents by UNESCO in order to better develop this universal culture based on peace and human rights. You know, UNESCO-associated schools are very important when it comes to promoting this culture. The universities also have a major responsibility to take. I must say that we're seeing some very interesting and positive signals coming up right now. If we just think that in the beginning of the 90s, human rights were not taught in Italian universities or foreign universities either. There was nothing like that. Now, well, we have counted 204 subjects on human rights in 56 Italian universities. Therefore, the work that is now being done inside universities in order to keep on investing in education. Education is a structural long-term investment. And the CRUI, the Conference of Italian Rectors, University Rectors, they set up the network of peaceful universities. 59 universities now belong to this network. And, well, you know, UNESCO is also taking part in that network. So there is a very strong, very close interaction with many initiatives being promoted at the moment by universities. Last year, on the 10th of December, we managed to promote initiatives in almost all those universities that joined the network. So schools and universities, as I always say, have to work hand in hand because they represent just one world. They have to work together in order to also to organize some coaching for students, to provide the coaching and orientation to students, and also in order to have a very ambitious objective. Well, you know, the task of schools and universities is to train new managers, new executives, new managers who are able to better manage our societies in the future. I would also like to say that one of their tasks is to educate active citizens who are aware of the fact that they live in a global society. Well, you know, we also have to think about the human factor. We are all humans, teachers and students. And UNESCO, that believes in education in order to support a sustainable development, well, UNESCO highlights that a student needs to know the topic, first of all. If the objective is, for example, fight against poverty, the student will have to be aware of the political, economic, natural reasons that don't allow us to fight effectively against poverty. So knowledge, first of all. And then there's another dimension based on sort of empathy, social, emotional reasons. That is to say, the person, how does the person relate to this knowledge, and what feelings emerge from that? And then you also wonder, what can I do? Considering my past experience, considering my knowledge, what can I do in order to try and change things? Well, because everybody is invited to do his or her best in our daily life. All right, so now you are mentioning objective number 16. And Ludovica was asking which actions can countries and also the international community put in place in order to promote peace? Well, first of all, countries will have, or states will have to learn how to respect the international law, just like we are taught since, well, we were children. We are taught how to respect the law. Also, the states will have to learn how to respect human rights and international law. Another thing that states should do in order to promote objective number 16 is they should support international organizations and make them more democratic, starting from the UN. The international law on human rights was born thanks to these international organizations. If we eliminate the UN, UNESCO, and many other institutions, well, you know, we will just eliminate all the human rights that they have created. Human rights were created in order to guarantee the effectiveness and efficiency of rules. But, you know, I mean, giving more power to these organizations and organisms means that these institutions need to be very democratic. I know it's easy to talk about democracy for a specific country instead of democracy for international law. But democracy is not to be taken for granted. Democracy has to be real. So, we would need to have a parliament for the United Nations, for example, just like we have a parliament for the European Union. And also for international institutions, we need to have political participation by the citizens. This already happens within certain international organizations. Building peace means giving power to universal regional systems for the protection of human rights. These systems are at risk at the moment. States, governments are not investing in international.
Non ci sono diritti senza responsabilità. E quindi è chiaro che questa responsabilità noi la...
And of course, we need to acquire more responsibility by knowing more through knowledge. This is an extremely important duty we have. So studying. This is your task. You need to study. You need to learn how to participate actively, not just at local level, not just in your school, but also at international level. You also need to be able to grab certain opportunities. For example, you could join the European solidarity body or organizations, etc. So we need to not just know the theory, we also have to implement human rights, protect and implement human rights, and this is everybody's responsibility. The topic of democracy within international organizations is very interesting. Today we're here to talk about UNESCO. Especially the initiative of associated schools. UNESCO doesn't want to be something far away, just locked inside a precious building. UNESCO wants to do something practical, something that is strictly connected to our daily life. UNESCO wants to propose initiatives and your school takes part in those initiatives. You are the players. You are powerful players acting for the organization. And as it was said a couple of days ago, we want to see UNESCO as something practical, working at several levels. So please consider yourselves as the players of UNESCO, representing UNESCO on your territory.
Dobbiamo superarne anche un po' la retorica, e così viviamo nella società della conoscenza, l'open society, e questi sono gli anni, non ricordo più quale esattamente, in cui si sono costruiti più muri nella storia dell'umanità, muri sui confini, barriere, e viviamo nel mondo globale. C'è una contraddizione enorme che non riusciamo neanche poi tanto a vedere e esserne consapevoli. Però io voglio sottolineare invece anche l'aspetto che Enrico Vicenti, cioè l'autorità UNESCO, la Commissione nazionale, l'autorità UNESCO in Italia, ci invita, ci sprona a fare oggi, così come tutti gli altri giorni dell'anno, cioè a prendere un'assunzione di responsabilità. Quando tu ci dici gli attori siete voi, guardate soprattutto ai più giovani, ma tutti noi senza differenza di età, credo che sia una cosa molto importante, molto concreta. Oggi voi avete posto delle domande, dei temi, però un domani queste domande, un domani significa anche domani importante che diventassero invece delle prese di responsabilità, delle proposte, delle idee concrete, dei progetti. E non voglio essere retorico, per questo anche se può sembrare. Noi che siamo una fondazione, quindi siamo un ente indipendente, no profit, ci occupiamo di economia della cultura, questi ragionamenti li cerchiamo di fare nel nostro piccolo e abbiamo cercato di capire come dare voce, dare spazio a quelle esperienze, quelle buone pratiche, quei progetti interessanti in grado di concretizzare questi macro principi della pace, dei diritti e soprattutto nel nostro caso dello sviluppo sostenibile attraverso un'iniziativa che è un premio, che si chiama premio della Fondazione Santagata per buone pratiche di sviluppo sostenibile in territori e comunità UNESCO, in aree che hanno una designazione, come si dice in un non felicissimo linguaggio tecnico, UNESCO. Voi sapete, no, tutti quanti conosciamo principalmente il patrimonio mondiale, però le designazioni UNESCO sono tante altre. Noi abbiamo scelto le principali, le 5 principali, che sono il patrimonio mondiale, il patrimonio culturale immateriali, le città creative, i geoparchi e il programma Uomo e Biosfera. E abbiamo cercato, già a partire dall'anno scorso, nella prima edizione, di assegnare un premio che non vuol dire fare una classifica, vuol dire semplicemente fare un esercizio di conoscenza, di promozione.
And in particular, we focus on many projects. We do really apologize, but interpreters cannot hear what is being said in the room. Last year, there was a project for fighting against climate change. And there was a special prize dedicated to rural development. This year, we have selected the winners, and we have a short video about the winners. Thank you. Okay, we are connected, so we can continue. So thank you so much. Thank you for awarding us the prize. It is a great honor. I mean, our project is based on a very practical idea concerning the sustainable development, in particular 3 goals: health and well-being, climate change, and innovation. 3, 13, and 9, these are the goals of the agenda. I mean, the project was based on this idea. I mean, the idea was quite simple because this is one of the principles I work on. I mean, this is the principle of my life. We have to listen to nature and to follow the needs of nature in order to protect the environment and ensure health and well-being and life quality. The project is a project about collective mobility. So the idea is to eliminate private cars within our park, which is a big park involving many valleys, and we have hundreds of thousands of vehicles, of cars crossing the valleys, in particular in summer when tourists arrive. And this situation is against, our principles of health and well-being. So the idea is to eliminate private cars. We would like cars to be left outside the valleys and replacing private cars with collective solutions. The project involves 70 people, 1 million euros. So we have a principle of active preservation because within the protected area of the park, we don't want to have private cars, and we want to train people, the people responsible for this system. So it is quite easy to describe, but not so easy to implement. So people will use a shuttle bus. So through collective mobility, people are taken directly to the protected area of the park. Thanks also to an innovative system of online booking. Also, let's say, made in advance. So this summer, we could organize transport for people for 500 cars. I mean, to avoid 500 cars, and we did it in particular during weekends. You know, usually, I mean, valleys are on the mountains, so if we have 500 cars crossing our valleys, well, in terms of safety, but also from an environmental point of view, well, you know, this is actually contrary to our principles of protected areas. So it is an organized system, and we want to further develop it and implement it. So very shortly, what are the perspectives of our system for the future? First of all, we would like to raise awareness about the protected area of the park. I mean, this year was, let's say, a test year. We know we can improve things, and so we will improve both personnel training and some organizational issues. We want to involve even more all the stakeholders on the territory, because we are quite proud of having involved all the players in our territory. So the Anello Brenta Park Management Authority, but also the administrations of the cities, and also the tourist promotion bodies. Next year, based on the success of this year, other public administrations have decided to be part of our project. So we would like to provide a very green service. So, for example, the shuttle buses we have adopted have cutting-edge technology. We would like to have electric buses available, and make sure they are environmentally friendly. At the same time, we would like to close some valleys to traffic and even to collective mobility, because we would like to have some, let's say, bike-friendly valleys, also to e-bikes. We have already done that. Some valleys were close to traffic, and only bikes could access the valleys. we also want to strengthen the online booking service. In particular, visitors can book the car park and also the ticket for the shuttle bus. And starting from next year, we also would like to improve accessibility to e-bikes, and also to provide for opportunities for parking the cars in many areas outside the protected area of the park. This project is self-funding, self-financing, because basically we can really self-finance our project, and which means it is a zero-cost project. Next year, we would like to provide collective service, collective mobility for free, in order to encourage people to park the car and use the collective mobility. So the project was quite successful, and we hope we can even, further improve and implement it next year. Okay, this is it. I cannot communicate with you, but I think this is it for my presentation of the project.
That I'm broadcasting, because I cannot see or hear nobody. So you hear me? Yes? Okay, so I thank you. I don't know if you have the chance to see our video, our presentation video. I suppose not, but I don't know. I will continue without you showing the video. It was supposed to be heard, but then let me just begin. First, I'm very, very honored, and I would like, first of all, and on behalf of all the cities of the Media Arts Network of Creative Cities of UNESCO that are cooperating on this project, we were acknowledged by. I really would like to thank the Fondazione Santagata and the Scientific Committee for this award. It was not only by acknowledging the work we've been doing within the City to City project, but really, and most important, it is indeed an honor and an incredible stimulus for the future and for the sustainability of the project we have running. So the UNESCO Creative Network has this media arts sub-network cluster. We are now 21 cities. 5 of them joined us quite recently. So we are all around the world. So we have different identities and cultural and sizes. We are cities from different sizes and from different cultures too. So city to city, as I think you did not saw the video, is mainly a collaborative project, but an artistic one. So a creative support program. We, within our cluster, thought of, and the first edition was last year, and was, as someone in the previous panel said, it was really UNESCO making real things for real people, daily and concrete. So we were thinking about a project within our network to be presented in Santos. That was the annual conference that was supposed to happen in Santos, but then the pandemic arrived, and we thought we should do something together to not only demonstrate the power of being connected and collaborative and in a real network, but also a very concrete thing to support artists and creatives that are our mainly matter of doing things. And then we begin to really work super fast, and collecting support for everybody. And one of the things was the importance of getting all the cities being able to participate, even though they were super different strains and different conditions. So we tried to figure out a program that everybody could participate, and that could also allow artists from the different cities to participate. So we were actually answered how could the Media Art Cities from the UNESCO Creative City Network work together, support their artists and creatives, and really inspire their communities with this program. So aside from securing the artists' fees, we should really devote our own resources within our different cities' availability to work together and align the conditions to make these things happen. So we really did it happen, and it was really very difficult, but we came out with incredible artworks that were reflecting and addressing the difficult situation we were going through. Well, we still are, but we were a bit more difficult than in 2020. And then we came out with an incredible online event. Everybody joined us, and we have 5 incredible joint collaborative art projects that were presented and were and now are being presented all over the world in festivals and everywhere. So the main positive and this year after we finished it, we looked back and we thought together, we joined forces, and then we are now on finishing the 2nd edition. We have more cities engaging in the project. We have 14 artists engaging with it. We had labs. We improved a lot of things that did not work so well in the last edition. So this is really work in progress daily, but super eradicated in each city reality and in each city way of doing things. That's very important. The main, of course, the city to city was set out to be an equal partnership, independently of the size of the city or the GDP or even the geographical location of the city. And we actually were very, very happy, not only with the process of cooperating and engaging and being inclusive, but because we were addressing the main challenge of the 2030 agenda, how we can in our cities, within our constraints, with our different sizes, really contribute to the main sustainable development goals. So we work through, supporting actually individual artists and creators. We challenge all the network and the artists to, you know, to address and implement new technologies and take the most out of them, and even challenge them. We each artist that was hired and through an open call from each city should bring their specificities to the project and the knowledge it in the international network. Then we were, sorry, I was looking to the chat. Then we were, and this is very important, we were really creating, you know, the basis, and now is really paying off for this, creating a further and stronger basis for being for international cooperation. And this new edition of City to City is, you know, much bolder, much more inclusive, much more challenging, and because we were able to work together and you know, building trusts. And now another projects of partnerships are arising due to this period of collaboration and all of this new challenges that lie ahead of us. So when you ask me about the future of the project, that is not without, you know, that's not all roses and everything is going super well, but we are hoping not only to, you know, invite other creative cities to join, but are really working on giving more visibility to the projects they are created, to, you know, try to be more inclusive for the type of artists and creators we are engaging. And so we are basically responding to what UNESCO asked of us, of being creative cities, is that culture and art can really make a difference, and not only by improving the well-being of the communities we live, or contributing to the, you know, to the economy of our local cities, but actually being a basis of trust to collaborate together all over the world. That's the most challenging and the most incredible experience I can share with you. And to finish, we are so honored that you acknowledge this, and it's not the first time that the City to City within this, you know, we are really new program is also acknowledged, and we are very, very happy and very, very inspired to be part of this UNESCO family. And I'm really glad that we can do, you know, not so big things, but things can really happen if we join forces and surpass the difficulties, constraints we all have, because we are all going through very difficult times. But things are possible, and City to City project and your acknowledgement shows that. And the future is really on our hands. And, you know, of course, we need resources, financial and human resources. but if we really commit, we can do it. I don't know if you will have the chance to see the video or not. I would like you very much to see it because it just wraps up all the story of City to City so far. But I don't know. So once again, thank you very much. And once again, all the cities from our media arts cluster really, really appreciate this honor you make make favor to give to us. Thank you very much.